Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another ink comparison video, and this is the Visconti ink comparison video number 1. So I think with that, let's go and swab up some of these inks. So the first ink here I'm going to swab up today is Visconti Bordeaux. So we'll do an ink swatch, and you can see this is actually quite a nice red colour ink. We'll do a second pass just so that we can see the saturation level if it's a wet nib. So this is Visconti Bordeaux. And this is actually a really nice red ink that I like. You can see a little bit here on the dry that it's more muted and a little bit more sheeny like going on. And then obviously the wet comes out a little bit more of a punchy red. The next ink is Visconti Green. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And you can see here, this is almost like a jade colour green. And I have to say that, to start with, I wasn't a big fan of this. But it's grown on me over the years, to the point that I do actually like writing with it. So this is Visconti Green. The next ink is Visconti Sepia. So we'll do an ink swatch. And I have to say that this is, strangely, just looking at this ink swatch, an ink that I don't write with a lot. And I do not know why. Because this is a really lovely sort of horse chestnut colour brown ink. And I do like horse chestnut brown inks. So I think this is an ink I'm going to have to ink up again. So this is Visconti Sepia. The next ink is Visconti Blue. Now, I just want to show you here, this has, around the rim of the bottle here, a lot of sheen. You can see that sheen there. That is actually very spectacular. So, we'll do an ink swatch. And strangely enough, I have always thought that this ink is quite a thick, viscous style ink, and typically sheening inks tend to be more thicker because that's what brings out the sheen on the inks. So this is Visconti Blue. And then the last Visconti that I have in my collection, ink, Visconti that is Visconti Black. So we'll do an ink swatch. You see they're getting a little bit more drier there. What I'll do is I'll put a second layer on the top, just to show the difference between a wet nib and a dry nib. And you'll be able to see the difference. So this is Visconti Black. So I think let's take a look at these colours in a little bit more detail. So we have Visconti Bordeaux here. And you can see the difference between the dark area, which would be a wet nib, and the light area, which would be a dry nib. I actually prefer the colour or the shade of the wetter nib. Now, there isn't any sheen there, but and there's not a lot of shading. There's a few bits of shading around here. But then the writing sample is actually quite nice, a quite bright red. The next one we have is Visconti Green. And you can see again the difference between a wet and a dry nib. Again, I prefer the wetter nib. There is a lot of shading going on here in these pulled areas. So you can see that there. Now, is there any sheen? It's wanting to break out. Like, if I can show you just around here, around the edges. But it's still really not sheening as such. But you can see from the writing sample as well, it's actually quite a nice green. Then we have Visconti Sepia. Now, again, you can see a massive, well, let me get the notepad there. You can see the massive difference here between a wet and a dry nib. And I have to say, on this instance, I prefer the dry nib. I prefer that lighter horse chestnut colour. Now, there is some shading, but very little. And in terms of sheen, I want to say it's trying to sheen. I'm seeing remnants there of sheen, but it's just not really that vibrant enough to probably show it on camera. The next one is Visconti Blue, and again you can see much of a difference between the wet versus the dry there. There is also shading going on in the pulled areas, but there is also some sheen, and see if I can get that on camera. You'll see there that there is a little bit of sheen around those pulled areas. Not a lot, but there is, and we did see it on the rim of the bottle as well. The writing sample is quite dark. And then we have Visconti Black, and you can see here a huge difference between the wet versus the dry. The wet is a lot more darker. I'd say it's looking a little bit more of a dark brown to me, and not a black. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But if you look at the writing sample here, it definitely looks black. The reason is why it's looking brown is that there's a lot of sort of brownish, bronzish, sort of, or goldish sheen going on there. And that is actually making it look a little bit more brown than it is black. But as you can see from the writing sample, it actually does look quite black there. So that's my Visconti Inks Comparison #1 video. If you like any of these links, do let me know in the comments below. If there are any other inks or any other ink videos you would like me to review or do a comparison of, then do let me know in the comments below. So that's my Visconti Inks Comparison #1 video. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.